right, let's take a look at that quadratic formula as we finish up on all of our examples and questions for today. So folks, when we use the quadratic formula to solve, as we go through all our different steps of ways to solve, remember that the quadratic formula will always work. So the first thing you typically look at is factoring. See if there's some easy factors there. Look to see if there's a b value. If there's no b value, then let's solve using radicals. You can always complete the square. I would look to see if that b value is an even number. That's typically when it's a little bit easier to complete the square. And if it has a common factor with your a value. But the quadratic formula will always work. And our quadratic formula is the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So given a quadratic, the first thing we need to do is we need to identify our a, b, and c values. So in this example, our a value is -2, our b value is 12, and our c value is -5. Notice that they always take the sign in front. Now we're simply going to plug in all of our values right into the quadratic formula. That's one great thing about a formula is it tells us exactly how to do it. So let's start by plugging in. We have the opposite of b, which is 12, plus or minus b squared, so that's 12, minus 4 times a is -2, times c is -5, all divided by 2 times a, which is -2. So now let's go ahead and start to simplify this. So the opposite of 12 is -12, plus or minus, under the radical, 12 squared is 144. Now when you look at underneath the radical, you have a minus 4 times a times c, or you could look at that as -4 times -2 times -5. Okay? So if I take a -4 times a -2, I'm going to get a positive 8, and a positive 8 times 5, -5, is going to give us -40, all divided by 2 times -2 is going to result in -4. As I simplify this, I'm going to get -12 plus or minus 144 minus 40 is going to result in 104 divided by -4. So folks, when we look at this, this is going to result in our 2 zeros. That's why we have a plus and a minus in front of that radical. Now as I take a look at the radical, I know that that is not a perfect square, so therefore it's going to result in an irrational number. So we are going to round our zeros to the nearest 100th. I'm going to shrink this up just a little bit for us. Oops, move that up. Give us a little bit of extra space here. So let's take a look. Our first solution, our x value will equal the opposite of 12 plus the square root of 104 divided by -4. So when we take the square root of 104, we're not going to take off any of the digits until we get all the way to the end. We're going to get around 10 and 198039, okay, and it's going to keep going. We're going to add the -12 to that and divide it by a -4. And to the nearest 100th, we get 0 and 45 hundredths. So there's our first x value. Let's work to get our second x value. So now it's the opposite of 12 minus the square root of 104 divided by -4. So let's grab those calculators. Let's take that square root of 104 again. So our negative 12 minus the square root of 104 divided by negative 4 will result in negative 5. And when we round to the nearest hundredth, it's going to be 55 hundredths. Now, as we're doing these calculations, think about there is another way that we can go back and check our work. If these are our x values and our zeros, keep in mind that whenever we graph these on our coordinate plane, and we can use Desmos to help that, this should be where it crosses the x-axis. So let's, one quick try, give that a quick double check. So as we give it a check using Desmos, there's our negative 2x squared plus 12x minus 5, and you can see that our zeros are in fact at approximately 45 hundredths and 5 and 55 hundredths. So a good way to always go back and check our work. Okay folks, continue to work hard.